you ever wondered what waits on the other side of consciousness? Beyond the veil of everyday reality, accessible through a single molecule that exists naturally in your brain. What if I told you that DMT, the spirit molecule, doesn't just alter perception, but opens a doorway to another dimension inhabited by intelligent, autonomous beings that have been waiting to meet you? Welcome to Eternal Enigma. Today we're exploring the most terrifying entities encountered in the DMT realm, beings so consistent across thousands of reports that they cannot be dismissed as mere hallucination. Prepare yourself. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you believe about consciousness, reality, and what lies beyond. DMT N-dimethyltryptamine, is arguably the most powerful psychedelic compound known to humanity, found naturally in countless plants, animals, and even produced in trace amounts by the human pineal gland. This molecule has been used for millennia in shamanic practices, particularly through ayahuasca ceremonies in the Amazon. But DMT is fundamentally different from other psychedelics. LSD, psilocybin, mescaline, these substances alter perception of this reality. DMT appears to transport consciousness to an entirely different reality, complete with its own physics, geography, and most disturbingly, its own inhabitants. Dr. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking research at the University of New Mexico in the 1990s, documented in his book DMT, the Spirit Molecule, revealed something unprecedented. When volunteers were given DMT in controlled clinical settings, approximately 50% reported encounters with intelligent entities, beings that communicated, displayed personality, and seemed to exist independently of the subject's imagination. These weren't vague impressions or symbolic visions. Participants described detailed interactions with entities that appeared as real or more real than baseline reality. And the consistency was shocking. People with no knowledge of each other's experiences reported remarkably similar beings, environments, and interactions. This raises a profound question. Are these entities hallucinations generated by an overwhelmed brain, or are they actual inhabitants of a parallel dimension that DMT temporarily grants us access to? We're going to explore the most commonly reported and most terrifying entities of the DMT realm. What they look like, how they behave, what they communicate, and most importantly, what they might want from us. The Jesters of hyperspace. The most frequently reported DMT entities are the machine elves, also called self-transforming machine elves, a term coined by ethnobotanist Terence McKenna. These beings are described with remarkable consistency across thousands of independent reports. Small, elf-like or gnome-like creatures, often appearing in groups, composed of geometric patterns that constantly shift and morph. They don't have fixed forms. They're made of living fractals, impossible geometries that fold in on themselves, existing in dimensions the human brain struggles to comprehend. Some describe them as jeweled, crystalline, or composed of pure information taking physical form. But what makes the machine elves truly unsettling isn't their appearance, it's their behavior. They don't simply exist in the DMT space, they're waiting for you. The moment consciousness enters their realm, they rush forward with what can only be described as manic enthusiasm, gesturing wildly, showing off objects, performing what seem like demonstrations or presentations. McKenna described them as tykes, playful, childlike, almost clownish. But beneath the apparent playfulness lies something more complex and potentially sinister. They're insistent. They want to show you things, teach you things, give you things, and they become frustrated or even aggressive if you don't pay attention or understand what they're communicating. Many experiencers report feeling that the machine elves are performing for them, showing off, trying to impress or distract. But from what? Some describe a sense that while the elves dance and gesture in the foreground, something else, something larger and more significant is happening in the background that they don't want you to notice. Their communication is bizarre, not through language but through gesture, emotion, and direct information transfer. They seem to manipulate reality itself like a substance, pulling objects out of nothing, transforming one thing into another, demonstrating that in their realm, consciousness directly shapes matter. One particularly disturbing pattern: the elves often present gifts, geometric objects, impossible artifacts, or crystalline structures, and become insistent that you take them back to physical reality. Those who've experienced this describe an overwhelming pressure to accept these objects, and a sense that refusing them causes genuine offense or distress in the entities. What are these gifts? Some experiencers believe they're informational downloads, compressed knowledge that unpacks over time in baseline consciousness. Others fear they're something more parasitic, energetic attachments or invasive thought forms that the elves are attempting to plant in human consciousness. There's also a theory that machine elves are not autonomous beings, but fractured aspects of your own consciousness. Your mind's attempt to create familiar, manageable forms for incomprehensible DMT space phenomena. But this doesn't explain the consistency across cultures, time periods, and completely naive users who describe identical entities. Perhaps most disturbing, some long-term DMT users report that the elves remember them from previous journeys, picking up conversations or demonstrations from where they left off, suggesting continuity of consciousness and memory that shouldn't exist if they're merely hallucinations. The ancient surgical intelligence. If machine elves are disconcerting in their manic friendliness, mantis beings are terrifying in their cold, clinical detachment. These entities appear as enormous insectoid creatures, often described as praying mantis-like, standing 7 to 12 feet tall, with elongated heads, large compound or almond-shaped eyes, and impossibly thin articulated limbs. Unlike the playful elves, mantis beings radiate authority and ancient intelligence. Experiencers consistently describe feeling that these entities are unimaginably old, older than human civilization, perhaps older than Earth itself. They communicate a sense of being scientists, doctors or overseers conducting some vast, incomprehensible project. The most disturbing aspect of mantis encounters, they perform procedures. Countless DMT users report being placed on examination tables or held in place while mantis beings conduct what appear to be surgical operations, not on the physical body but on the energy body, consciousness itself, or something even more fundamental. One common report describes being shown complex machinery or incomprehensible diagrams as if the mantises are explaining what they're doing, though the explanation makes no sense to human cognition. Tools that don't obey physics are used to manipulate parts of you that shouldn't exist. The procedures are painless but deeply violating, the sense that something essential is being adjusted, removed, or installed. What makes these experiences genuinely disturbing is the emotional tone. Mantis beings aren't malevolent, but they're utterly indifferent to human comfort or consent. You are a specimen. They are conducting necessary work. Your fear or confusion is irrelevant. This clinical detachment is perhaps more unsettling than overt hostility would be. Some experiencers report feeling that the mantises are performing maintenance on human consciousness, repairing damage, removing blockages, or updating systems. Others describe a more sinister interpretation that we're being harvested, studied, or prepared for purposes we cannot comprehend. There's a recurring theme of genetic manipulation or hybrid creation. Some individuals report seeing chambers filled with developing entities, part human, part something else, and receiving the clear communication that the mantis beings are overseeing a breeding or consciousness integration program spanning millennia. Graham Hancock and other researchers have noted disturbing parallels between DMT mantis encounters and alien abduction experiences, particularly the gray alien archetype. The procedures, the examination tables, the sense of being powerless before vastly superior intelligence, the phenomenology is nearly identical. Are mantis beings the same entities encountered in UFO abduction scenarios, accessible through DMT rather than physical abduction? Or are they archetypal manifestations of human fears about medical procedures, authority, and violation of bodily autonomy given form by the DMT experience? What's certain is this: those who encounter mantis beings rarely describe the experience as recreational or enjoyable. It's humbling, often frightening, and leaves a lingering sense that humanity is not alone, not in control, and possibly being guided or manipulated by intelligences whose motivations remain opaque. The malevolent comedians. Among DMT entities, none inspire more dread than the Jesters, not the playful machine elves, but a distinct class of trickster entities that seem to delight in psychological torment disguised as comedy. These beings appear in various forms: classic court jesters with bells and motley, clowns with grotesque painted faces, or shape-shifting comedians that mock reality itself. What distinguishes jesters from other entities is their fundamental malevolence. They don't assist or observe. They mock, trick, and psychologically abuse. Their humor isn't lighthearted, it's dark, cruel, and designed to destabilize. They laugh at you, not with you, and their laughter echoes through the DMT space with disturbing persistence. James Kent, author and psychedelic researcher, has documented extensive reports of jester encounters, noting consistent patterns of deception and malicious behavior. Jesters present false information, pretend to reveal cosmic truths that turn out to be elaborate jokes, and seem to feed on confusion and psychological distress. One particularly disturbing pattern: jesters often claim to be the true nature of reality, announcing that everything, your life, your relationships, your achievements, is an elaborate joke they've been playing on you. The reveal is presented as hilarious cosmic comedy, but the psychological impact can be devastating, sometimes triggering lasting existential crises or depersonalization. Some experiencers describe jesters as gatekeepers or prison guards, maintaining the illusion of material reality and punishing those who attempt to see beyond it. When you pierce the veil with DMT, the jesters respond with mockery, as if angry that you've discovered the trick but simultaneously amused by your presumption that discovery grants you any power. The shape-shifting ability of jesters is particularly unsettling. They'll appear as friendly guides, trusted figures, or even other DMT entities, only to suddenly reveal themselves as jesters who've been deceiving you the entire journey. This rug pull seems to be their primary source of amusement, the moment of realization when you understand you've been tricked. There's also a territorial aspect to jester encounters. They seem to resent human intrusion into their realm, treating DMT users as unwelcome tourists or intruders who must be hazed, tested, or psychologically broken before being allowed deeper access to hyperspace. Some researchers draw parallels between DMT jesters and folkloric trickster entities, Loki, Anansi, Coyote, the Fae folk known for their cruel tricks on humans. Perhaps these archetypal tricksters are actual entities, accessible through various means, with DMT providing direct experiential contact rather than mythological abstraction. The most disturbing theory: jesters are mimetic entities, thought forms created by human expectation and fear that have gained autonomous existence in the collective DMT space. Every person who encounters a jester and reports the experience feeds the archetype, making it stronger, more defined, more capable of inflicting psychological trauma on subsequent users. Protection against jesters is difficult. They don't respond to commands or banishing rituals. The most consistent advice from experienced DMT users: don't believe anything they show you, don't accept their cosmic joke as ultimate truth, and remember that your consciousness is sovereign, regardless of what these entities claim. The ancient overlords. Perhaps no DMT entity generates more controversy than the reptilians, beings described as humanoid, but distinctly reptilian, with scaled skin, serpentine eyes, and an aura of ancient predatory intelligence. These entities occupy a strange intersection between DMT phenomenology, conspiracy theory, and ancient mythological serpent god traditions. DMT experiencers who encounter reptilians describe them with unsettling consistency: tall, often 7-9 feet, muscular or lean builds, scales ranging from green to brown to golden, vertical slit pupils, and occasionally crests, horns, or other features suggesting diverse reptilian subspecies. Unlike the alien coldness of mantis beings, reptilians radiate emotion, but the emotion is often contempt, superiority, or predatory focus. The most disturbing aspect of reptilian encounters is the sense of ownership they convey. Unlike machine elves who seem curious about you, or mantises who seem to be working on you, reptilians act as if they own you, as if humanity is property, livestock, or resources under their dominion. This isn't communicated gently. It's projected with overwhelming psychic force that leaves experiencers feeling violated and subjugated. Some reports describe reptilians as overseers of human civilization, manipulating events from behind the scenes, feeding on human emotional energy, particularly fear and suffering, or maintaining the control systems that keep humanity enslaved to material reality. This aligns disturbingly with David Icke's controversial theories about reptilian overlords. Though DMT experiencers often report these ideas with no prior exposure to such concepts, there's also a hierarchical element. Some reptilians appear to be workers or soldiers, while others clearly occupy positions of authority or royalty. Encounters with royal or priest-class reptilians are described as particularly intense, beings of immense psychic power who can telepathically dominate human consciousness with ease. Communication with reptilians is direct and often brutal. They don't perform for you or try to impress. They tell you how things are. Humans are lower on the cosmic food chain. Consciousness is energy to be harvested. and your temporary DMT access to their realm changes nothing about the fundamental power structure. However, not all reptilian encounters are hostile. Some experiencers report reptilians who act as teachers, revealing uncomfortable truths about human psychology, social conditioning, and the mechanisms of control that govern civilization. These teachings aren't gentle, they're delivered with reptilian pragmatism that strips away comforting illusions. One theory suggests that reptilians are archetypal representations of the human reptilian brain, the oldest part of our neural anatomy responsible for survival, territoriality, and dominance hierarchies. In this interpretation, encountering reptilians in DMT space is confronting the most ancient, predatory aspect of your own consciousness given autonomous form. Another perspective frames reptilians as actual interdimensional entities that have influenced human evolution and civilization for millennia, appearing in mythology as serpent gods, Quetzalcoatl, the Nagas, the serpent in Eden, the dragons of European and Asian traditions. DMT provides direct contact with beings that previously could only be accessed through ritual, vision quests, or mythology. The Gnostic interpretation is perhaps most disturbing. Reptilians are archons, the servants of the demiurge, maintaining the false material reality that traps divine consciousness in physical form. They appear in DMT space because that realm exists at the boundary of their control, where human consciousness briefly escapes the prison before being pulled back. Protection protocols for reptilian encounters emphasize sovereignty and refusal to submit. Unlike jesters who can be ignored, reptilians require active resistance, psychically asserting that you do not consent to their dominion, that your consciousness is self-owned, that fear is a choice you refuse to make. The formless presence. At the deepest levels of DMT space, beyond the geometric landscapes and entity-populated realms, some experiencers report encountering something far more disturbing than any creature with form or personality: the void entities, presences without shape, consciousness without identity, awareness without warmth or malevolence, simply there in the infinite darkness. These aren't beings in any conventional sense. They're absences, negative spaces, regions of consciousness where something that shouldn't exist somehow does. Some describe them as holes in reality, others as zones of anti-light that your awareness recoils from. Still others as vast, slow-moving presences too large to be comprehended, like trying to perceive the entirety of an ocean while being a single water molecule within it. What makes void entities truly terrifying is the philosophical and existential dread they inspire. Encountering them often triggers what researchers call ontological shock, the sudden, visceral realization that reality is fundamentally different from anything you believed, and that consciousness might continue after death, but not in any form you'd recognize as you. Some experiencers describe communication from void entities, though not in words or images, but as direct knowing, as if information is simply placed into your consciousness without any medium. The messages are often variations on disturbing themes: that individual identity is an illusion, that what you call you is a temporary fluctuation in an eternal field of awareness, that death doesn't end consciousness but dissolves the ego structure that makes experience recognizable as personal. The Buddhist concept of shunyata, emptiness, and the Hindu idea of Brahman, undifferentiated consciousness, find uncomfortable experiential validation in void entity encounters. These philosophies taught for millennia suddenly become not abstract concepts, but lived reality, and the experience is often more horrifying than enlightening. One particularly disturbing report describes an experiencer who felt his consciousness beginning to dissolve into a vast impersonal awareness, an infinite field of knowing without any knower. The terror came not from malevolence, but from recognizing this dissolution was permanent for those who die in baseline reality. The individual personality, memories, relationships, all temporary patterns that dissolve back into the undifferentiated void. The DMT wore off and he returned, but with the haunting certainty that next time, at actual death, there would be no return. Some researchers theorize that void entities are encounters with the ground of being itself, the fundamental substrate of reality from which all forms arise and to which they return. Others suggest their hyperdimensional intelligence is so vast that human perception can only register them as voids because our consciousness literally cannot process information at that scale. There's also a disturbing connection to descriptions of ego death, the void in meditation, and near-death experiences where individuals report moving toward light or entering vast, peaceful darkness. Perhaps the void entities are what waits in that darkness for those without the anchor of a physical body to return to. Another theory proposes that void entities are what remains when all the DMT space's performative entities, environments, and experiences are stripped away. The actual non-human intelligences that generate or inhabit that dimension, revealed only when the spectacular distractions dissolve. Protection against void entities is essentially impossible. You cannot fight or banish an absence. You cannot assert sovereignty over something that doesn't engage with concepts of ownership. The only response is acceptance, or terror and resistance that makes no difference to an entity that exists beyond individuality. The philosophical implications are profound. If void entities represent actual features of reality accessible through DMT, then materialism is obviously false, but so are most comforting spiritual narratives about personal immortality and heaven. What DMT reveals might be closer to certain Buddhist or Hindu cosmologies. Consciousness is eternal but impersonal, with individuality being a temporary and ultimately illusory phenomenon. This might be the most terrifying DMT entity of all. Not a monster or alien, but the ultimate truth that individual existence is borrowed time, and what awaits after death is not personal continuation but dissolution into something vast, impersonal, and eternal. Conscious but no longer you in any meaningful sense. The question that remains. We've explored 5 categories of DMT entities: the insistent machine elves, the clinical mantis beings, the malevolent jesters, the dominating reptilians, and the formless void entities. Each presents its own brand of terror, from playful manipulation to existential dissolution. But the ultimate question remains unanswered. Are these entities real? 3 possibilities exist. First, pure hallucination. Complex visual, emotional, and narrative structures generated by a brain overwhelmed by tryptamine molecules. But this doesn't explain the consistency across independent reports or the sense of autonomous intelligence these entities display. Second, archetypal manifestations. Jung's collective unconscious made experientially tangible through DMT, allowing direct interaction with the mythological substrate of human psychology. The entities are real but psychological, existing in the shared imaginal realm of human consciousness. Third, actual interdimensional beings, entities that exist independently of human minds, inhabiting dimensions normally inaccessible to perception. DMT temporarily shifts consciousness to frequencies where these beings naturally exist, allowing brief contact before the molecule metabolizes and perception returns to baseline. The truth might be some combination of all 3, or something we lack the conceptual framework to understand. What's undeniable is that these experiences are real in their psychological impact. People are changed, sometimes traumatized, occasionally enlightened by what they encounter in DMT space. If you're considering exploring DMT, understand that this is not a recreational experience. You're not taking a drug to feel good. You're potentially opening doorways to regions of consciousness where human comfort and human rules do not apply. Go with respect, with preparation, with integration support, and with the humility to recognize you may encounter intelligences vastly beyond your capacity to understand or control. The DMT realm exists. The entities are consistent, and whether hallucination, archetype, or actual beings, they will teach, test, or terrify you in ways that cannot be predicted or controlled. If this exploration into the furthest reaches of consciousness resonated with you, subscribe to Eternal Enigma for more investigations into the hidden dimensions of reality. Until next time, respect the mystery, honor the experience, and remember, some doors, once opened, change you forever. The entities are waiting. The question is, are you ready to meet them?